She walked into that room, and nobody recognized her at first. Not because she'd aged, not because she'd changed her style, but because the woman who stood there was someone the world had never truly seen before. Pamela Anderson, 58 years old, had stripped away the armor she'd worn for decades. The platinum blonde hair that had become her signature, her shield, her brand gone. And in its place, something raw, something real, something that made everyone stop and stare for entirely different reasons than they had for the past. 35 years. This isn't just about a haircut. This is about a woman reclaiming herself. Let me take you back, way back. Before the red swimsuit, before the Playboy covers, before the tabloid headlines that turned her life into a spectacle. Back when she was just a girl from a small town in Canada, dreaming of something bigger. Pamela Denise Anderson was born on July 1, 1967, in Ladysmith, British Columbia. A logging town, blue-collar families, hard-working people who didn't have time for nonsense. Her parents, Barry and Carol, were young when they had her. Too young, some would say. The kind of young where you're still figuring out your own life while trying to raise another one. And Pamela's childhood. It wasn't the fairy tale people might imagine. She's spoken about it. Years later, in hushed tones during interviews that felt more like confessions than promotional appearances, there was trauma. There was abuse. Things that no child should ever have to carry. But she did carry them, silently, buried beneath a smile that would later become world-famous. She was a cheerleader in high school. Popular, but not in the way you might think. She wasn't mean. She wasn't calculating. She was kind, warm, the type of girl who made everyone feel seen. But inside, she was building walls, brick by brick. Learning how to survive by becoming what others wanted to see. Then came the moment that changed everything. 1989. She's 22 years old, attending a football game in Vancouver. The BC Lions versus whoever. It doesn't even matter. What matters is that the stadium cameras panned across the crowd and landed on her. Wearing a Labatt's Beer t-shirt. Looking like Pamela Anderson. The crowd went wild. The energy in that stadium shifted. And someone made a decision right then and there. They put her on the Jumbotron. Her face, 50 feet tall, smiling down at 70,000 people. Within days, Labatt's offered her a modeling contract. Within months, she was on the cover of Playboy magazine. And within a year, Hollywood came calling. But here's the thing nobody talks about. That moment in the stadium. It wasn't magic. It was a transaction. The world looked at Pamela Anderson and saw an opportunity. A product, something that could be packaged and sold. And she, hungry for escape, hungry for love, hungry for validation she'd never received as a child, she said yes. She moved to Los Angeles, the city of dreams and broken hearts. Her first big break came with Home Improvement in 1991. She played Lisa, the tool-time girl, standing next to Tim Allen, holding power tools and smiling. It wasn't Shakespeare, but it was a start. America started to notice her. And more importantly, casting directors started to notice her. Then, in 1992, everything exploded. Baywatch, that red swimsuit. Running in slow motion down a California beach with David Hasselhoff and a crew of lifeguards who looked like they'd been sculpted by Greek gods. The show was cheesy. The acting was questionable. The plots were ridiculous. But it became the most watched television program in the world. Not just popular. The most watched. And Pamela Anderson became C.J. Parker, the blonde bombshell, who could save drowning swimmers and stop hearts with a single glance. But there was a cost, because when the world decides who you are, when they reduce you to a body and a hair color and a fantasy, you start to disappear. The real you. The girl from Ladysmith, who survived trauma and wanted to be loved for more than her appearance. She gets buried beneath the persona and Pamela. She buried herself deep. Her love life became front-page news. Tommy Lee, the drummer from Met Crew, they met in 1995 and got married 4 days later. 4 days. The kind of whirlwind romance that sounds passionate and exciting until you realize it's built on intensity, not foundation. They had 2 sons together, Brandon and Dylan, beautiful boys. And for a moment, it seemed like maybe, just maybe, she'd found something real, something that could ground her. Then came 1997. The tape, a private moment stolen from their home, leaked to the world without their consent. Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee's honeymoon video distributed 2 million. Sold, profited from, and she had no control over it. 0. The violation was unimaginable. But the world didn't see it as a violation. They saw it as entertainment, as scandal, as something to consume. She tried to stop it, legally, emotionally, but the internet was just beginning to explode. And once something is out there, it's out there forever. Her privacy was shattered. Her dignity was questioned. And the worst part? People blamed her, as if she'd done something wrong by existing, by being a woman, by trusting someone she loved. The marriage fell apart. Toxic and tumultuous, marked by headlines about arrests and restraining orders and public meltdowns. She left him. She went back. She left again. The cycle of someone trying to save something that was already broken. But she kept going. She kept working. Kept smiling for the cameras. There were more relationships. More marriages. Kid Rock. Rick Salomon. Twice. Each one dissected by tabloids. Each one ending in heartbreak or disappointment or both. The public watched her love life like it was a reality show, never stopping to consider that behind every headline was a real woman. Hurting, and through it all, the blonde hair remained. That platinum, almost white shade that caught the light and screamed Pamela Anderson. It was her brand. Her trademark. The thing that made her instantly recognizable from 100 yards away. But it was also a cage. Years passed. Decades even. She did more acting. She advocated for animal rights with a passion that surprised people who only knew her from Baywatch. She wrote letters to world leaders about seal hunting and factory farming. She put her fame to use for causes she believed in. But still, the world couldn't see past the image. She was always the blonde bombshell, the sex symbol, the punchline. Then something shifted. Maybe it was turning 50. Maybe it was watching her sons grow into men and realizing how much time had passed. Maybe it was simply exhaustion. Exhaustion from playing a character for 35 years, from being looked at but never truly seen. In recent years, Pamela started showing up to events without makeup, completely barefaced. No foundation, no mascara, no lipstick. Just her skin, her freckles, her lines, and the world. The world didn't know what to do with it. Some people praised her, called her brave, revolutionary, a feminist icon rejecting beauty standards. Others criticized her, said she'd let herself go, that she looked tired, older, as if aging was something to be ashamed of. But here's what they didn't understand. Pamela wasn't making a statement. She was making a choice. The choice to stop performing, to stop being the version of herself that everyone else needed her to be. And now? Now she's taken it even further. The blonde hair is gone. She's debuted a new look, and it sent shockwaves through social media and entertainment news. Some reports say she's gone brunette. Others suggest a softer, more natural shade. The details almost don't matter. What matters is the symbolism. For decades, that blonde hair was Pamela Anderson. It was the first thing you noticed. The thing that defined her in photographs and on screen. And by letting it go, she's letting go of something much bigger. She's letting go of the persona that was built around her. The one that protected her, but also trapped her. The one that made her famous, but also made her invisible. Think about it. How many people actually know Pamela Anderson? Not C.J. Parker. Not the Playboy model. Not the tabloid headline. But Pamela. The woman who loves animals more than most people. Who writes poetry? Who survived abuse and violation and public humiliation and still managed to raise 2 sons with grace? Who's complex and contradictory and human, very few. Because we never gave her the chance to be anything other than what we wanted. And that's the real tragedy, isn't it? We take these people, these celebrities, and we freeze them in time. We want them to stay exactly as they were when we fell in love with them. We don't want them to age or change or evolve. We want the fantasy to remain intact. But Pamela Anderson is tired of being a fantasy at 58 years old. She's finally choosing herself. Not the version that sold magazines. Not the version that boosted ratings. Not the version that made everyone else comfortable. Herself, and you know what? That takes more courage than anything she's ever done. It's easy to conform. To give people what they expect. To maintain the image because it's safe and familiar. It's terrifying to strip all of that away and say, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. She's been through so much. The childhood trauma she rarely discusses. The meteoric rise to fame that would overwhelm anyone. The invasion of her privacy in the cruelest way possible. The failed marriages. The constant scrutiny. The decades of being reduced to her appearance, while her intelligence and her activism and her humanity were ignored. And through all of it, she survived. She kept moving forward, even when the world tried to break her. This new look. It's not about vanity. It's about liberation. It's about a woman who spent her entire life being told who to be, finally deciding for herself. It's about shedding the costume, stepping out of the character, refusing to be defined by other people's expectations. And the reaction has been mixed. Some fans are celebrating her, flooding social media with messages of support and admiration, calling her an inspiration, praising her for her authenticity and her bravery in an industry that demands eternal youth and unchanging beauty. Others are confused. They see the photos and they don't recognize her. They mourn the loss of the blonde hair like it was a person. They wonder why she would change something so iconic. But that's the point, isn't it? She's not doing this for them. She's doing it for herself. For the first time in her life, Pamela Anderson is living on her own terms. Not Hollywood's terms. Not the tabloid's terms. Not society's terms. Her own. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most revolutionary thing a woman in Hollywood can do. The industry chews people up and spits them out. It worships youth and discards experience. It builds people up just to tear them down. It demands perfection while offering nothing but criticism. And for women, it's even worse. The standards are impossible. The shelf life is brutal. The judgment is relentless. But Pamela Anderson is refusing to play that game anymore. She's showing up as herself. Wrinkles and all. New hair color and all. Bare face and all. And in doing so, she's challenging every single person who watches to ask themselves a question. Who am I when nobody's watching? Who am I when I strip away all the expectations and the performances and the masks? Who am I, really? It's a terrifying question. But it's also a necessary one, because at the end of the day, we're all performing to some degree. We're all wearing costumes. We're all trying to be the version of ourselves that we think the world wants to see. And sometimes that version becomes so convincing that we forget who we were underneath. Pamela Anderson forgot for a long time. Or maybe she didn't forget. Maybe she just couldn't afford to remember. Because remembering would mean acknowledging all the pain, all the ways she'd been hurt and used and objectified, all the years she spent being someone else's fantasy instead of her own person. But now she's remembering. She's reclaiming her story, her image, her identity. And in doing so, she's giving permission to everyone else to do the same. To stop trying to be perfect, to stop trying to please everyone, to stop hiding behind the versions of ourselves that feel safe but aren't real. This is bigger than a hairstyle. This is about agency, about choice, about a woman who spent her entire life being consumed by the male gaze, finally deciding to look in the mirror and see herself through her own eyes. And what she sees might surprise people, because it's not the sex symbol. It's not the bombshell. It's not the punchline or the scandal or the tabloid headline. It's a woman, flawed and beautiful and complicated and strong. A woman who survived, who endured, who's still here, still standing, still evolving. That's the real Pamela Anderson, and she's finally ready for us to meet her. So what happens next? Who knows? Maybe she'll love the new look and keep it forever. Maybe she'll change it again next month. Maybe she'll go back to blonde. It doesn't matter. Because the point isn't the hair. The point is the choice. The freedom to wake up every morning and decide for yourself who you want to be. Not who you were. Not who you're supposed to be. Who you want to be. And if Pamela Anderson, after everything she's been through, after all the years of being told who she had to be, can find that freedom, then maybe there's hope for all of us. Maybe we can all stop performing. Stop hiding. Stop shrinking ourselves to fit into boxes that were never meant to hold us in the first place. Maybe we can all have the courage to change, to evolve, to let go of the versions of ourselves that no longer serve us, no matter how iconic they might be. Because in the end, that's what growth looks like. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. It requires letting go of things that feel safe and familiar. But it's also necessary. Because staying the same just to make other people comfortable, that's not living. That's existing. And Pamela Anderson is done just existing. At 58, she's finally learning to live. On her terms. In her truth. With her new look and her bare face and her refusal to apologize for any of it. And honestly, that's the most beautiful thing about her. Not the blonde hair or the red swimsuit or the magazine covers. But this, the courage to be real, the strength to be vulnerable, the wisdom to know that she deserves to be seen, not as an object or a fantasy, but as a human being. So here's to Pamela Anderson, to her journey, to her transformation, to her refusal to stay frozen in time just because that's what we wanted. Here's to the woman who's finally becoming herself. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own life and the masks you wear, let me know in the comments below. What would you change about yourself if you had the courage? What version of you are you hiding? And don't forget to subscribe to Luminoir for more stories that dive deep into the lives of the people we think we know, but have never truly understood. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video, because everyone has a story, and everyone deserves to be seen.